Hi my loves, thanks for returning. As you know by the thumbnail, this video is going to be on the Natasha Denona palettes and actually looking at if they're worth having. So I have some palettes of hers that I would like to talk about and share some things with you. So if you're interested in finding out my thoughts and if I think they're worth having, then just keep watching. So the palettes that I want to talk about today are her 28 pan palette. This is the purple and the blue one. Her Star palette, her Sunset palette, the Lila palette, her two holiday palettes, and her latest release, the Tropic palette. This Tropic palette, since this is the latest one and I know that YouTube is saturated with a lot of thoughts and ideas, so I thought I would just kind of add my little 2 cents. And I did use this palette to come up with the look that I have on right now. So I decided not to use my fingers at all when using this palette. Also, I was looking at a Glittery Life, and she said that the reason that a lot of people were hitting hard pan on her metallic shades and her sparkle shades is because people were using dirty brushes. The brushes weren't clean, and she also said that when you have oils on your finger, that's going to cause you to hit to get that hard pan thing going on with the palette. So I didn't use my hands, okay, and I made sure that I did not stick a dirty brush. Even when going from color to color, I had a spanking clean brush. So anyway, with that being said, here's the palette right here. So if you're familiar with me and my channel, you know I like to use lit, and that is to get, and I use that to get the most vibrant type of payoff. Well, with this shade right here, you don't need it, honestly. You don't need it. And I used a clean brush. I don't have that hard pan, as you can see. It doesn't have that overlay type of thing. Now what I did do, I stuck my brush in and I kind of chucked it up a little bit. I saw a lot of people taking their brushes like you're supposed to use your brush and sliding it across. So the more they slid, I saw the more that the shadows were pressed down. So I said, okay, well, I'm gonna do something different. So I took my brush and I kind of stuck it in like this and went like that. Okay, I didn't go like that. I didn't do that like what you're supposed to do. I just kind of stuck it in and chucked it up. So anyway, with that being said, this color right here that I have on my inner eye, that is without lid. That's without the brush being wet. I mean, marvelous. She needs to sell this, you know, a single pan in this instead of in a palette. Now, I did use the blue, and it is starting to get a little bit of that hard pan situation going on. A little bit, but not much. Okay, and again, I didn't use my fingers. I used a little bit of this green, but I only used it over in the corner for my lower lash line. So I used Limoncello for my inner tear duct, and I tried to use Gutsy, but it didn't work out. Only because I tried to put it on top of this blue because I heard somebody say that it was a topper. But anyway, so I used this color, this one, this purple, and of course this blue, and this one, and this one. I actually used a lot of these colors. Now what I will say is that these colors, these mattes, are very pigmented. They're very smooth. They don't have a lot of fallout and all that kick up and all that other stuff. It's not a lot of that going on. Okay, and they are the most pigmented because when you look at this red, and I'll be honest, when I looked at this red and when I looked at this mauve, I knew this blue was going to be pigmented, and I figured that one would be. But all of her shades, even though it does not look like it would be brown girl friendly, these shades are all brown girl friendly. And I'm just saying that because when you look at it, you're thinking, oh, only a fair skinned person would be able to benefit out of most of those mattes. So is this palette versatile? I would say no, because you know, you really don't have a lot of options for transition colors and brow bone highlights. I don't think that you get the most value for your money because this palette is $129. That's before tax. Now it is a nice palette. Okay, I will say it's the prettiest palette, and what's cool about this palette is that she's got the holes on the back so you can take these shadows out. Now her only other palettes that do that are her holiday palettes. As far as blendability, these colors right here, the green and the blue, they don't blend well at all. I tried to blend, as you can see, I have a really sharp line. I'm not sure if you can see that, but you can't really, this green and this blue is very hard to blend. All I could do was lay this chocolate color on top of the metallics and her special crystal shade because I couldn't really get it to blend into anything. Even with a brush, I could barely, you know, get this green and this blue to work. And even though you do see it on my eyes, it took a lot of strokes. And when I say a lot, I mean, at one point I was like, okay, enough is enough. You know, you gotta stop it and move on. So overall, I would say that the metallics are by far the worst out of all of her palettes. Her specialty shade, that sparkle, that she calls a sparkle shade, that blue shade, which is this shade right here, is far superior out of all of her shadows. Now, with that being said, if you take your finger and you rub, you know, take your finger and dip it in and rub it in like that, it's gonna turn it into a hot mess. You're gonna get that hard pan and it's gonna go flat and smooth, and it's not gonna work. With all of those metallic shades, you just can't use them like that. And you know, for a palette to be this much, it shouldn't take all that to use. You shouldn't have to use tricks and special things to use. You know, for a palette to be this much, you know, you shouldn't have to take all these necessary precautions to use the palette, in my opinion. So with that being said, would I recommend this palette? Not unless you're a collector and you want to have all of her palettes, or unless you want to have maybe this shade and this one, and then to have her mattes. But these metallic shades are, in my opinion, they aren't any good. All right, next on the list are her 2017 holiday palettes. These were supposed to be limited edition. These retail for $48. Now that in itself is, you're not getting any type of value for your money. And also these palettes are not versatile. Now, if you want to look at her mattes, this terracotta matte right here is a beautiful matte. It almost has the same formula as the mattes in the Tropic palette. So this terracotta is excellent and it blends so well. Now, a lot of her sparkles and chromo crystals, that's just what they are. They're toppers. So I think that they do just that, and you're not going to get any more than that. You're just going to get a light sparkly sheen. The blue, however, is pigmented and it is very, very pretty. Okay. Hope you can see that. So that is super pretty. But overall, I don't think that these palettes are versatile. I don't think that they're worth the money. The metallics and her sparkles and her chroma crystals in these palettes, they are really nice. However, if you do get them, because this was limited edition, if you do decide to get these palettes, be careful because the shadows fell out. They fell out on a lot of people. I think this one fell out on me. So just beware of that. But you can't get a lot of looks with these at all. So just know, if you pick these shades, you're gonna get blue and gold and red and gold, and that's it. You're not gonna get much. I think that they blend a lot better than the metallics and the mattes in the Tropic palette. I could not get those to blend together at all. However, these two, I could get them to blend. Now, the pigmentation, I think the pigmentation is good. You know, here are some mattes, okay, matte to the metallic, and here are some of her sparkles and chroma crystals. Would I recommend these? If you're a collector, yeah. If you love these shades, these are your jam, then you might want to get these. Okay, so next let's talk about the Lila palette. And I think that this palette is probably the most loved from at least a lot of the people that I saw on YouTube. Now, this palette has metallics, it has creamy mattes, as she likes to call it. It has the chroma crystals, and I think it's interesting because with her matte shades, they get a little bit better from palette to palette to palette. And the matte shades in this palette are very good. And I don't think that this palette is very versatile, only because it's strictly a purple palette. And even the transition shades, they lean to a mauve type of color. And when I think versatile, I'm thinking of something that you can go from a everyday work look to maybe a party look. Now, while yes, many of us probably could wear some purples and things like this to work, but for most, I'm thinking probably not. I think that you are getting value for your money. Now, are you getting the most value out of all of her palettes? No, because you're only getting 15 shades. Her chroma crystals in this palette, her mattes in this palette are very pigmented. I think that this is just, as far as the shadows and the shade, all of it is just very good. Now, would I recommend this palette? Yes, I would. It's a palette that is universally loved by a lot of folks. Even me, I like it. It's not my favorite, but I really do like it. And I think that you would enjoy, if you like metallics and some of those strong, heavy pigmented metallics, and you like a good matte, then most definitely. And it does come with this little flap with the names. You get a mirror. This palette was made in Italy. You get like a little faux colored case-like thing, and it's just a good palette, and I recommend it. Okay, so let's talk about the Sunset palette. Now, she does change formula from palette to palette to palette. And the mattes in this particular palette are just a little bit different, in my opinion, from the Lila palette. Now, this palette is $129 like the other palette. You get a mirror, you get the little flap with the names on it. Now, if you are into that sunset, yellow, terracotta, a little bit of orange, a little bit of gold and yellow and a white, then you would love this palette. I think that the metallic shades and the chroma crystal shades in this palette a little bit different from the Lila palette. So in my opinion, overall, the mattes would fall just below the Lila palette. But everything else in this palette I think is really pretty. This would be an excellent versatile palette. And again, I'm basing that on if you can take a palette and go from a work daytime look into a evening look. And it's got some transition shades. You have a white in there. You have a brow bone highlight. The white could even be a brow bone highlight for a very fair skinned person. With that being said, I think that you're paying the price because of who she is. And I know you're like, well, who is she? But let's be real. You're paying for the name. You're paying for where it was made. You're paying for the amount of product, because you get a lot of product in all of her palettes. I think that the casing is nice. This fake leather type of look, I think it's nice, or I think it was better than most. I particularly like it. I even like this little flap. You get a mirror. So that would be my opinion on it. So yeah, if you like these colors, certainly jump on it. So this is the Star palette, and this is by far, hands down, my favorite. Now let me tell you why. Because I like those really creamy specialty shades, the metallics, the chroma crystals, the sparkles, all of that cool stuff. I love all that in a palette, and I think that this palette has the most of it. Okay, now as far as blendability, I think that her mattes are blendable. I think that the metallics blend well in with the mattes. I think that this palette is versatile because you have you have cool tones and you have warm tones, and you have some shades that could be used as a brow bone highlight depending on your shade. You got crease colors, you have lid colors, you just have a lot of things going on to where you could get a everyday work look plus take it into a evening look. Everything is really easy to work with, very creamy. Her chroma crystals are just gorgeous. This color, this one, you have a duochrome right here. So again, if you like those metallic-y shades as well as some soft, smooth, blendable mattes, I would say go for it. And this palette was made in Italy as well. It's paraben free and it wasn't tested on animals, and it's just a good palette, and this is my favorite one. Okay, so the last palette that I want to talk about was her first. This is her first palette that she released. She released a purple and blue one, which is this one, and a green one, but I elected to get the purple one. This one is it right here. So this palette was $248. I do like this palette. Do you get value for your money? If you are a makeup artist, I would say yes, you do, because you get a lot of product in these pans, it's just not your average amount of product. Do these colors blend? I think they blend well. How are the mattes? The mattes are dry, okay? They're dry, and some of them feel a little gritty. Some of them do, but not all of them. They do blend well, but they don't blend well like her other palette. To me, I think that these are some excellent metallic shades and all of those special names that she likes to use. I'll probably have them somewhere on the screen what it is, but her metallic shades are all very soft. They're very creamy. And with this palette, you don't get that hard pan to where if you use it with your fingers or you use it with your brush, it's gonna get that hard layer. You don't get any of that. The only palette that really happens to is the Tropic palette. I think the pigmentation is really good. Is it the best out of all of her palettes? By far, it is not. I think that, again, the Tropic palette and the Holiday palette, I think that those have the best pigmentation out of all of her palettes. Then I would say comes the Lila palette, and then everything else right behind it. But you know, with her palettes, you can't really base you can't base everything off of one particular palette. It's like you have to go in and swatch all of them because the formulas are all so different. Again, it's versatile if you're a makeup artist, but for an everyday person, this is a horrible palette. You can't get work look with this palette. You really can't because of the mattes in here. This is a matte. These two purples, these two blues, this little blue and this blue and that one. And that's it. Also, would you be missing out on something if you didn't get this palette? No, I don't think that. Even though her formulas are different than a lot of other formulas on the market, I don't think that, you know, you would be missing out on anything if you didn't have this palette. Would I recommend it to the everyday person who is looking for something versatile, something that they can go to work in and also get a play look out of? This is a no-no. But everybody else, yeah, this would be something fun to have. So that is pretty much it on me reviewing all of Natasha Denona's palettes. And remember, those thoughts are subjective. They, you know, if you ask the next person who has all of her palettes, they would certainly say something different, I'm sure. Why? Because their likes, their dislikes, their tolerance, all of that is going to be different from Bridget's. So that, I just wanted to kind of get that out there, just to kind of talk about all of her palettes in one video and just kind of compare them and just kind of talk about what's going on with her palettes. I like Natasha Denona's palettes. I don't too much care for the Tropic palette, and since she is so used to changing formulas, you know, I can't wait to see what her next palette is going to be, because I'm sure it's not going to be like the Tropic palette. So that is one thing with Natasha Denona. You're never going to get the same thing twice unless they're being released together. They're going to be different. So she does keep it fresh and interesting, but at the same time, you know, some things that, you know, I wish that the things that she has mastered and done well, I wish that she would stay with that. But you know, it's her company. She can do whatever she wants to. I like her as an artist. I really enjoy her palettes. I did speak on the ones that I would just really recommend, and I told why. So I hope that you enjoyed the comparison, and until my next video, smooches.